Yes, we're good to go. So good morning. My name is Janusz Maruszewski, and I would like to welcome you to a meeting with the management board of CI Games. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the financial results of CI Games for the third quarter of 2023, and also to summarize the current sales of the Lords of the Fallen game. I am pleased to welcome to our meeting Mr. Markiem Tymińskim, CEO of the CI Games. Good morning, Marek. And Mr. David Broderick, CFO of the CI Games. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
The meeting will be divided into two parts, a presentation and a Q&A session. I would like to invite you to participate and also to ask questions. Gentlemen, I give you the floor.
Yeah, hello everyone. At our third quarter results, we have a lot more to present today, and we're looking forward to answer questions from investors. Let's start. Just briefly, reminding everyone who we are. We are AAA developer and publisher, mostly operating with our staff in Europe, but we also hire people in other parts of the globe. Today the presentation is a longer presentation, so I will be mostly sliding through the deck, and that presentation is available on our website after the conference. Obviously, we run two popular IP franchises, working on the third one on the codename Project Survive. Very experienced global team across development, publishing, marketing, operations, and finance. 20 plus years of experience in developing and publishing video games. 25 million copies sold. We are 100% remote global organization, so we do not operate from any physical office, any physical location. We hire basically talent where the talent is. Currently, we are just under 200 people internally, but as we said many times, we're working with plenty of outsourcing firms on our projects. And the average management experience is 18 years. That's our management team, the executive team, David, me, on the management and the executive team with very senior people across different disciplines. This is our top 10 in terms of the countries where we hiring people across different disciplines. Obviously, currently, the largest part is Spain, the second is the UK, third is Poland. Poland currently is mostly finance, admin, IT. We also have a couple of developers working out of Poland. That's a split in terms of the functions between across our organization. We just decided to bring a bit of a landscape of other established AAA developers who are mostly operating in Europe, and obviously CI Games is currently still the smallest in terms of the headcount, but we are ambitious and we just delivered a game that brought us to that league, and we have great plans ahead of us. Those are the key company milestones. Probably most of you are aware. Latest being Lords of the Fallen that we launched in October a month ago. David, that's your part. Please, you go ahead.
Obviously, we've shown the income statement in two parts for the year to date, the 9 months, and the subsequent slide will show the performance in the quarter. Revenue is in excess of last year, running at 59.1. Most of this, we obviously shipped some copies of Lord's physical version before the launch. So the title and the ownership of those transferred before the end of September. That's basically what's reflected there, with 29.1 of the sales coming from those physical sales with the sell into distributors. Sniper making up 14.3 million or 24%, and 6.7 million or 11%, coming from United Label. Selling costs, again, they increased compared year on year. This is mainly due to the fact that we were starting to ramp up our marketing campaign. It's probably important to note most of the marketing costs will fall in the fourth quarter, given that the game was launched on the 13th. So certainly in the week up to and weeks after, a lot of the promotional activity was driven then. Growth in G&A costs year on year from 12.2 to 13.6. Again, we continue as we scale and grow to invest in our core teams around HR, legal, and other kind of recruitment costs. So that's effectively what's driving the increase there. Obviously, with all of this activity, there's an operating loss in the period. And like I said, most of the marketing costs of the upcoming launch of Lords and investment in the team's development are driving that. If I go on to the next slide, again, we've isolated the performance in the third quarter. Again, many of the explanations around revenue are highlighted again. It's the pre-shipping of Lord's physical copies. It's the marketing activity in the period. And you can see that the G&A costs amounting to 4.8 were similar to the same period last year. Again, small operating loss in the period, mainly driven by the marketing costs and the launch of Lords. Moving on to the balance sheet, again, total assets increased 49%. Again, this as we continue to develop and build games is driving that. Intangible assets amounted to just over 200 million, a net increase of 59.4. This is a reflection of our teams who are working on Lords, Project Survive, and to a degree, Project Scorpio. Group debt related to bank facilities, this totaled 44.2 million. Finance liability related to the office rental, where there's a corresponding asset, and bond series F, which were issued to active ownership for 27.8. Operating cash flow, again, 27.21 million, while net cash flow from investing activities was negative at 69.7. Most of this, again, continues as we invest in the games and build the teams out into that. Cash balance at the 30th of September 23 was 12.8 million. If I hand it back to you, Mark.
Thank you, David. Just a quick summary on Hexworks. Currently, 100 people, internal staff, working with 19 external contractors. Obviously, we're speaking about entities. We had almost 300 or over 300 people working on Lords of the Fallen external. The studio was founded in 2020, so this goes back to Lords of the Fallen being in development as it is, with some of the works being done before, but basically we started pretty much almost from the scratch, taking some of the advantage of assets and systems we had from the past. That was a 3.5-year development. Underdog, it's the studio that has Sniper Ghost Warrior previously, currently, as we will say more, working fully on Project Survive. 50 people working on for that studio internally, and as well will work with the external outsourcers on this current and future projects. We just wanted to bring some strategic pillars update with some of the new dates. So obviously the two main projects for us currently is Project Survive, that is run by Underdog Studio, that we have a target release of 2025. That's our target release. We feel quite comfortable about that target release. But once we get a firm date, we will be reporting that to the investors. And the largest project we are running right now. Shortly, we will start running that with the full team. Is Project 3 that will be under Hexworks with a target release of 2026. Apart from that, we have several other pillars that are important to our business with United Label that we still keep going and will release new titles next year. Project Scorpio, that is a project that will somehow depends on how we will progress with some of the discussions with some of the partners. Project Potential and Project Expand, those projects are what we announced a year ago. This is something that we feel comfortable, and we feel that this is important to our future going forward. And obviously, Sniper Ghost Warrior, it's our well-known franchise. We don't really actively having a large team assigned to that project right now, but we'll be looking into the works on that title within the next year. And once there is an update, we will be providing that to the investors. Q3 key events. So obviously extensive marketing campaign, and then you can see that in the costs for the first 3 quarters on marketing in our books. The headcount we increased to around 190 people. We brought Survive in-house from the external developer Battlefields, and we strengthened the supervisory board with the appointment of Michael Foley. Funding is something that David already said, and we extended the terms slightly with PKO BP, and we feel comfortable in paying those debts. Looking forward, obviously our ambitious aim is to report $100 million in net revenue in the next couple of years from Lords. Lords of the Fallen will be amortized over 5 years. We will provide some more guidance on that in the annual statement. Currently, we are close to 900,000 units sell through. This is our estimate that goes in digital and physical combined. We will provide the next update definitely in the annual statement, possibly sooner. 50% of the sales is overall till today is coming from the deluxe edition. And obviously, what you probably have seen, most of you have seen, we provided till today, I think, 26 patches to Lords of the Fallen. So the devs are working really fast, improving the game, improving our product. Currently, it's almost at 80% user score over Steam in the last couple of days since Black Friday started. So we see definitely a major progress in terms of how we improving the game and how we're polishing the game somehow as well based on the feedback from the communities. That's the current management team and the directors team on Lords of the Fallen, very seasoned developers who are responsible for the next project, Project 3. And all of them were responsible for Lords of the Fallen that we launched a month ago. Lords of the Fallen is our ` priority going forward for CI Games. And as we reported some time ago, we achieved 1 million units sold within the first 10 days. And as I said previously, our ambitious revenue aim here is 100 million reported in the next couple of years. Just a bit more on Hexworks in that slide. Obviously, that's a multicultural team. I think a biggest part of the team is working out of Barcelona, out of Spain, with developers in Romania, UK, France, Germany, Ukraine, Denmark, and more. This is just a reminder on Lords of the Fallen what was out in 2014. That was then co-developed with Deck 13, and some of the important achievements that game had on its account. Overview, I think, of Lords of the Fallen. I mean, most of you probably are fully aware. I mean, we just wanted to remind the development budget. We wanted to remind the marketing budget that is in line with the AAA scope that we been always speaking about, and I think our revenue aim is as well in line with the scope of the release. That is a very solid, very strong foundation for future. right? So we started that project where we started the studio from the scratch and built the studio while we're building the project. Currently, the studio is 100 people strong and is ready and eager to get into the next project. But where we're starting now is so much different than where we were starting as a studio, as Hexworks, 3.5 years ago. A bit more on Lords of the Fallen, on the game itself. And obviously, two parallel worlds are a key, unique feature of that game. And we're happy how it was received by the communities. In numbers, the game was in top 10 best-selling games in Europe. It was number 6 for both physical and digital in October 2023. It was, I think, the 20th best-selling game in the US, both formats in October 2023. Just to remind, we had 100 global remote internal developers, total over 400, 3.5 years, so far 26 updates. The sales overview, as I said previously, it's half-half between Deluxe Standard at this point. Largest market for that product so far was North America, and we see that staying almost 45% revenue generated from North America. This is about the scope and the average playtime. Main story, according to How Long to Beat, is 30.5. Completion is 63. Obviously, we see that usually those hours reported on How Long to Beat are a bit lower than the average bigger group is spending with the game, but we are absolutely pleased with the amount of content and the scope of the game that we provided with Lords of the Fallen. That's a marketing spend, and I think it's close to 90 million plus the trade marketing. This is the split between media assets, influencers. Obviously, we have spent the most on the media, then on assets and influencers. We had a major push with the influencers at the time of the launch. Just at the release that weekend, we had the major push with the influencers. More on marketing and at the launch. We have more information on marketing in appendix to that presentation. So once you download it, then you have it at the bottom. Those are the key trailers that we released for Lords of the Fallen. When you download the presentation, you have links to each trailer. A bit of a snapshot for Out of Home that was part of our campaign. We have spent less than I think 10% of our marketing on Out of Home in total, but I think it was very important to reestablish the franchise and strengthen the brand across the key territories. We obviously had the out-of-home campaign in Warsaw as well. And we see a very good sales that we are relatively to the market size that we are making in Poland. Those are just key numbers in terms of the marketing with the campaign views and paid media impressions. That's the launch reception with Metacritic currently being in average 73.5, right? When you combine those three platforms, the game was nominated to Ultimate Game of the Year in the Golden Joystick Awards. Some of the key numbers: total trailer views of 150 million, very strong, high popular content among the communities, among the gamers. several of important quotes from a bigger or large media. The game performed well also when you look into the Google Trends, and you can also look into YouTube search, Google search, versus other Souls-like RPG games out there. This is interesting on Steam user scores. I mean, we are comparing to the industry average. Industry average, we took that as it's a AAA space, so games that were coming out on PC and consoles at the full price. And this is how we are versus the industry average in terms of the English user score, all languages, week one, and all-time with number of reviews. Week one and all-time, obviously the number of reviews is kind of like impacted by the time the game is on sales. Those numbers here are some days old, right? So we have a bit higher number of reviews right now, just a bit higher number of reviews right now. Yeah, that was just even a day or two update. That's great. So it's just showing us versus the industry average, and it's showing that the game really performed solid across that. And if you look into the week one, there's a major discrepancy between English-speaking users and all languages, and we got negatively impacted in Asia, particularly in China. But we're working on that to change that trend, and we see the trend changing in China as well. And again, like this is a second part of that, and it's important to acknowledge that the amount of user reviews, especially, I mean, all-time or week one, are giving you a very good guidance in terms of the sales of the game, right? It's not super accurate, but according to us, that's a very good metric to use when you compare the sales of one game to another, especially within the similar genre. And definitely Lords of the Fallen performed really well. And just to be clear, we expected better sales of Lords of the Fallen before the launch. But overall, we have to be objective and say that it does really well. Some of the more information, I think, in perspective on the launch window was extremely competitive. And we see that from the standpoint of a lot of our games. I mean, you had some that performed superbly well. Spider-Man 2 is a great example of that. The game sold extremely well. But a lot of the games were really suffering from that competitive window. And objectively, we think that we did well in that super compressed, super competitive period. We obviously had a game that was one of the first to be launched on Unreal Engine 5. And on one side, it provides great opportunity. And I think if you look at the game, how it looks stunning, it looks great. But we had some of the issues that, especially on PC at the launch, we, as I said before, we pushed very hard to improve as much as we could and upgrade as much as we can as soon as we could. We're providing a lot of free content post-launch and a lot of updates, so 26 till yesterday. And we see a lot of positivity coming from the community and a lot of appreciation of what we have been delivering the last months and a half relentlessly, day and night on that game from the studio. And we're absolutely proud of the studio being able to deliver so fast on that. It's interesting here to look into the recent reviews on Steam and how the trend is changing in terms of that's pretty much where the Black Friday started. You see a trend changing and a lot of the reviews coming also from people who bought the game before, but that trend is mostly changing due to improvements to the game that we have made in the last weeks. A bit on Project Survive, nothing really new to say about the game. It's still fully confidential from the standpoint of revealing more on the game. That's a team that is behind that game. It's a very senior, very experienced team, with Aitor being the head of the project, the executive producer. And again, what we have said previously, we want to capitalize on a growing genre, want to deliver a product with a AAA features into that space that is mostly dominated by the bigger indie games, and want to be able to compete in that genre with the biggest one of the biggest survival games out there, including The Forest. And of course, the Sons of the Forest, Green Hell, and many more. As of United Label, as I said previously, we will be delivering more products to the market next year. We are very selective. This space is extremely competitive, and we see a lot of games basically failing on the indie smaller scale, and we're very, very careful. So we are considering and treating that as a long-term opportunity for us, but it's a really long-term. And we have delivered over 5 million US in sales through United Label, but we do not expect United Label to have a huge contribution in the next years to the revenue or bottom line for CI Games as a group. All what we can say right now on Project 3 is that we want to capitalize on recognition and success achieved with Lords of the Fallen within that space of action RPG, and want to take all the experiences, all the resources, systems, everything what we have as a studio to deliver more ambitious, stronger release using Unreal Engine 5 and leveraging the expertise that we have built on the previous release, being latest Lords of the Fallen. That's pretty much all in terms of the presentation. We have several more slides on marketing further on in the presentation. And David, let's look into the questions, and let's answer some of the key questions from the investors now.
Yeah, I think, Mark, if you want to kind of take people through there's questions about the distinction between sell in and sell through, and I suppose what that means in terms of reported numbers on units.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So what we are reporting, what we know 100% is our reported sales numbers, and those reported sales numbers are what we are selling through digitally. That comes from the reports we're receiving from digital platforms, including Steam, PlayStation, Microsoft, Xbox, and that includes as well all the units that we are shipping and invoicing to our physical units that we're shipping and invoicing to our distribution partners. That's the sell in, and that's the number that we see clearly. Then the number of the sell-through number is the number that actually the units are sold by those distributors. I mean, their retailers, digital platforms. Those numbers are sell-through numbers. On sell-through numbers, we are pretty precise on the digital, but on the physical, we are not as precise. It's quite precise, but it's still an estimation. That's what we are. That's why we're saying we're close to 900,000 units, and that's an honest and right estimation in terms of the sell-through. Obviously, the sell-in is over 1 million. We reported 1 million several weeks ago.
There's obviously a number of questions around FX movement relative to Euro and USD. Was Polish zlotys are our reported currency? Our revenues are USD and Euro denominated, and similarly, a lot of our costs are Euro and USD denominated. So we have minimal costs and minimal revenues in directly in Polish zloty. So, what we get on benefit on revenues, and if the movement is one way, we equally see matching kind of principle on the cost side. So, again, there's a natural hedge of sorts that exists for us on that. Just one question here, and I think you touched on it in the presentation, Mark. Just kind of view on the current sector competition. I think probably the window that we released in is a good representation on that. Just if you want to kind of give your views.
Sorry, David, can you repeat it?
There's just somebody's asking about kind of just competition in the sector, current kind of
right. There is
and
yeah. So basically, the second half of 2023 was extremely competitive, right? And you see that through a lot of games that were coming also from Polish game developers and from global anywhere. I mean, it's been extremely competitive, and it converted to a lot of games suffered seriously from the sales, right? And as it usually is, the largest games like Spider-Man 2 was still a winner in that race. It's been out there. I mean, ideally, you would like to release the game not in that crazy competitive period, but at the same time, when it goes back to the numbers, and I said that when we were looking into the user Steam reviews and amount of them per title in that genre, we did well, but obviously our expectations before the launch were higher, and I think that the market expectations as well. Will the market be so competitive in the future? I think to a degree, yes. I mean, that was very unusual. This second half, especially September throughout November, it's very unusual in terms of the amount of releases that came out to the market pretty much at the same time. I don't think this will be the case in the future, but I think the market is definitely going towards bigger releases, and we see that the biggest problems came from smaller games. I mean, in terms of they had the biggest problem in terms of the sales. Huge majority of them, I think, they did not match the expectations the companies had.
Again, I suppose I'll just clarify. Again, just on the units, when we announced pretty much after 8 days, that was a combination, obviously, where you have real-time digital sales, and it was a combination of the sell-in to distributors, so the physical copies that we had pushed through into the channel, of which a large proportion of that we can recognize or represent the revenue for. So it's important to understand that what we are reporting today is close on 900,000 units as of this moment. We are still in, I suppose, an intense promotional window. But this, as Mark explained, we have some of the lag on the data on the physical sales, but this is ultimate end-to-end consumer purchase. So it's important to kind of understand that distinction on units and give you a measure of where the game is kind of trending.
I think that there's a good question in terms of the 33% discount, or it was 30% of 34 on Steam, 30% on consoles. Question, why the discount came? That discount came so early. I think we see that more of a trend. Black Friday, it's been there for the last couple of years. The games were, looking into Call of Duty, biggest AAA games, coming out beginning of November, late October, then being $20 off for Black Friday. It started more aggressively in the US. Now we see that it's happening more across the globe. Doesn't mean that everybody does the discount. I'm not saying that, but I think what we have to recognize is the fact that it's very competitive, and that Black Friday was very competitive, and winter sales will be very competitive in terms of a lot of games, newer games than before, would be discounted higher than before. That's something that we have to be aware. I mean, basically the whole market, the industry is getting more aggressive in terms of in terms of the discounts.
There's a question here just in terms of how we view our headcount and plans for the next year.
It's a good question. We will be growing our teams. We won't be growing them very rapidly, so it's going to be a steady growth. I think we pretty much have two teams the way we wanted to have them on both Hexworks and Underdog. We're missing a couple of people here, a couple of people there, but as we know, it will probably be a bit more than that over the next year. But we have fully capable and fully staffed teams, for the sake of simplicity, to develop those two games. And speaking about Project Survive and obviously Project 3. There's a question whether Project 3 will be sci-fi or not, and I would say no. I'm saying no. It's not going to be sci-fi. It's going to be fantasy. But that's it. What I can tell about Project 3 at this moment. There's a question about the channels and about Black Friday. What channels drove the most of the sales? I think that the biggest channel in terms of sales for us right now for Lords is PlayStation. That's number one channel for us. And we see that on one side we had a very strong conversion of wish lists over Steam. So we have over 10% conversion very early on. That's based on the Steam information. That is strong, but we have had lower than expected or much lower than expected conversion or non-conversion. I mean, sell basically, it's not a conversion. Sales from people who haven't really placed their wish list. So this is where we think the major improvement can come once that people get to know that the game is really fully enjoyable, regardless of the tech, not crashing anymore. We reported on that recently, and we see that more people will come to buy that product, and on Steam and on other platforms as well. And there's another remark here. Games like Lords of the Fallen, so action RPG games, we see those games are selling longer, and usually they are the long sellers. We think Lords of the Fallen will be a longer selling game. That's what we are planning for, and we think that we will be monetizing, selling this product for years to come.
Just a question on debt. Obviously, our plan is to pay that down in line with the terms, so that would see the complete pay down of the debt by end of January next year.
Yeah, there's a question on. I mean, that's an important point on. Yes, we are into strategic. Into review of strategic options. So we speaking to strategic investors. We several times inform about that fact. So nothing we can say right now, but we will be obviously updating investors who are in case when there will be some key milestones on that. That's important to say as well here. And just to explain, there's a question about the language, and I think it's a fair question. Why we're not why we're not using Polish, but we using English? I mean, just to be clear, the whole organization is. English is the language for the organization. In most of the organization doesn't speak Polish. I think David doesn't speak Polish as well, and we also have investors who are at that conference who don't speak Polish. So we made that decision some time ago that we will be communicating also external, not just internal, in English. Anything, David, that you see?
No, I mean, again, I think we've gone through most of the points either through the presentation or what's in the questions here.
Right. Thank you very much, then, for taking part in the Q3 investor call. I really think it's definitely worth to look at the presentation, download the full presentation. We wanted to provide much more information in that presentation than before. And if there are any further questions, we obviously welcoming those questions over email to our IR email address. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you for the presentation and for answering the questions. I would like to also wish you the best of luck as you continue to develop the Lords of the Fallen and other games, also other new projects. My and your guests were Marek Tymiński, thank you, and David Broderick, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for today. Greetings and have a nice day. See you next time. Bye-bye.